Hello, my horror-loving dudes, I'm Killjoy Jake, and today we're going to be talking about why Gale and Kirby cannot survive the next entry in the Scream franchise. One of them has to go, and here's why. Let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
So real quickly before we get into this, I just want to say I had to make this video after reading Screen Rant's article written by Jordan Williams, giving the credit to them. This is where this all came from, because I have some crazy opinions on this article that really gave me a whole 180 on a certain aspect to Scream 6. Now, while I really did enjoy the latest entry in the Scream franchise, I still think it's my favorite sequel. I do have my criticisms. The way they handled the character of Gale Weathers, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of. We set up this big thing with her arc over the course of the last 5 movies, where she kind of softened up a little bit. In the first Scream film, Gale Weathers starts off as this sassy reporter who's gonna do whatever it takes to get a good story. Her relationship with Dewey softened her up over the course of the next 4 movies, and she turned into a very different person by the time we got to entry number 5. A strange choice in Scream 6 was to make Gale go back on her bull a little bit and write a whole book about the murders from the past movie, even though she promised to write a book about her dead ex-husband. She wanted to let Richie and Amber die in anonymity, but then like a year later, she writes a book about them and enables more killers, as we saw in Scream 6. There was a total of 5, arguably 6 if you count Sam putting on the rope at the end. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could count her as a Ghostface at this point. Who knows? Melissa Barrera has said recently that she would love to see Sam become the killer. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. But staying on topic here, a lot of people have pointed out already that this is a weird decision, and then setting this up, it almost feels like they're readying you for the death of Gale Weathers. Like, she's back on this, she can't stop what she's already started. This is why she's famous for writing about the Ghostface killers. She's not gonna stop doing that, and she's not going to stop enabling people to go Ghostface and kill people. That really sucks. So you would think that they would kill this character in the movie. Well, that's not exactly what ends up happening. She just barely survives within an inch of her life. This was something I especially did not love about the film. I love Gale Weathers. I think she's a great character, but I also don't want her story to go on for too long to the point where it's just like, what is the point of this anymore? This is so redundant. Why are we telling this long story when it doesn't need to be this long? This should have ended a couple of movies ago. I don't want that to happen for Gale Weathers, because so far, up until Scream 6, I thought her arc was written really, really well. But then I read this Screen Rant article today about what would have happened if Gale Weathers had died in Scream 6, and then I would have had maybe an even bigger problem if that had happened. Now, before we get to that, I do want to talk a little bit about the Kirby and Gale comparison that this article makes. That is very fascinating to me, and how Kirby could easily slip into her role in future installments if Gale was to die. The first big point they make in this article is that Gale and Kirby share a very similar role at this point. They're both very investigative for totally different reasons. If it's Gale Weathers, who's just a news reporter who wants a better story, or if it's Kirby, who's doing it for good reasons by being an FBI agent trying to solve the crime and put a stop to the murders. It was also just really cool to see Kirby come back into the narrative. She was a big standout character in Scream 4. She's beloved by many fans. I would love to see her come back for many more future installments. Hopefully when we get Scream 7 announced, whenever that happens. They also make a point that Kirby has a bigger future than Gale Weathers does at the moment. Like I was saying earlier, I feel like Gale's story has been told. Everything we needed to say with this character has been said at this point, and I think now it's time to kill her. And listen, I know people are hearing this and saying like, Jesus, Jake, this is blasphemy. You can't kill Gale Weathers. Well, listen, on the record, I will say this on the record, not off the record, on the record, I love Gale Weathers. She is maybe one of my favorite Scream characters out of the entire bunch, especially because of how her arc has gone through Screams 1 through 5. I love how they wrote that. That's so fascinating to me. But here's the thing, I really do love this character to the point where I don't want her story to be ruined. I don't want her to stagnate and just be in a movie to be in a movie. That's almost how it felt a little bit in Scream 6. It didn't seem like they knew what to do with her story and maybe pandered a little bit. Kirby, on the other hand, has only been in 2 movies, and her arc is kind of just beginning here. Now she's an FBI agent who's hunting down ghost faces, but what if we just keep doing that for future movies? She could serve as the Dewey and Gale at the same time. She's law enforcement and also very investigative, kind of like how Gale is. It's almost like a marriage of those 2 characters coming together into one, which is a much more efficient way to tell a story. I also really like Hayden Panettiere. I'd love for her to come back for more movies. I think she's a phenomenal actress. She really made Scream 6 stand out much more than it already did. So if she's kind of our new Gale, I'm not really complaining too much. Just like how we did with Sam Carpenter being the main focus opposed to Sidney Prescott now, there's more story to be told with Sam, just like how there is with Kirby. We can take it down a different path, just like how we're doing with Sam, and not tell the exact same story as what Sidney's story was. Same thing with Kirby. Let's not just tell the same story as Dewey and Gale with Kirby's character, let's tell a different story. We're already doing that with both Sam and Kirby too. I kinda love it, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. But the best point this article makes that totally made me do a 180 on the sequence with Gale in this past movie was the fact that Sidney has to return if Gale dies. Here's the thing, they weren't able to get Neve Campbell for this past movie because of a disagreement with how much she was getting paid. I've said this multiple times before, but I'm gonna say it again. It's kinda crappy that they didn't just pay Neve Campbell whatever she wanted. I mean, this was her franchise to begin with, and I think it's wonderful that she wants to come back. And a great way to bring her back into the fold for Scream 7 is if Gale Weathers dies early on. Now, I'm completely against Gale Weathers being an opening kill because that would suck. What a horrible tone setter that would be for the next movie. But if they make Gale Weathers a mid-movie kill, just like how they did with Dewey in Scream 5, that would work a little better with the overall tone. Because if you kill Gale Weathers in the opening scene of Scream 7, that means the rest of the movie is going to be very dour and dark. And I love this franchise, and I also love dour and dark movies, but that's not Scream. Scream is fun at its core. It's a very fun slasher film. It's not as gory or bloody or as dark as some other horror franchises out there, and that's okay. Not every horror franchise needs to be the darkest, most disturbing thing I've ever seen. It appeals to a wider range. It's a fun time. I love this franchise. I get why it's so beloved. Gale's last words in Scream 6 were also, "Tell Sidney he never got me." The last thing she was thinking about was probably Sidney coming to save the day after Dewey got killed in Scream 5. I'm sure she was thinking about both of these characters in that moment because she thought she was going to die, but she of course survived. If news had gotten to Sidney Prescott that Gale Weathers had died, she would do anything to get out there and stop these Ghostface killers. But that's not what happened. So I would have taken a much bigger issue in Scream 6 if Gale had died and Sidney didn't show up, because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, especially based off of the events of literally the film before that one. Dewey dies and it seems like not even an hour later, Sidney Prescott is there already. You can go off on the logistics of that all day. I don't care. Sidney Prescott is a badass and I love her. So Gale kinda needs to die for Sidney to re-enter the franchise. And I would love to see her come back once again in a supporting role. But another big issue I have with Scream at the moment is that there are so many characters that are still in the fold. We need to start killing some of them off or else it's just not going to make any sense. The ending of Scream 6 leaves us with kind of a convoluted start to Scream 7, where we need to start killing off some people. I would still say though that whoever dies in the opening of Scream 7 should be someone that lived through Scream 6. Doesn't necessarily have to be one of the core 4 members, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Gale or Kirby. Josh, it's looking pretty bleak, my friend. What a good way to start off Scream 7 too, especially if we're going back to the core 4, if we're bringing back all these characters. We go after Sam Carpenter's boyfriend, who also kind of a badass in the last movie. A little too understanding. He almost didn't even feel human how understanding he was of the situation, but it's fine, don't worry about it. In my opinion, 2 things need to happen in Scream 7 no matter what. I think Gale needs to die so that Sidney can come back, and we gotta start killing off some of these characters, man. It's getting a little too crowded in here. We gotta knock down some of the survivors a bit. So as controversial as that is, and I know there's a lot of Gale Weathers stans out there, trust me, I'm one of you, but at the same time, I don't want her story to become trash, because that would suck maybe even more. So let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Let's end Gale's story in Scream 7, and also give us one more little fleeting moment with Sidney Prescott before she can go off and have her happy ending. I'm curious what you all have to say about that though. Leave me your crazy theories for Scream 7 down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this Scream 7 theory video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel grow, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.